Let's go over to political and social commentator, my regular guest on this show, James Melville. Welcome, James.
Evening, Kevin. Are you well?
I'm very, very well. Let's talk about climate change. It's an area of speciality for you. First of all, we'll get on to mad, crazy Ed Miliband in just a little while, and the government's extraordinary intention to spaff £11 billion to foreign countries for more to pay for their own climate change claptrap. But let's lead off on this. It's a good example of the mania, the insanity that surrounds green hysteria. Glasgow University has been given £810,703, basically just over £800,000, nearing on £1 million, if you like, of taxpayers' money to fund a 3-year study into claims that the Romani people, Romani gypsies, are often portrayed as a source of environmental degradation, but that's not true, apparently. Their sustainable lifestyles can actually help the eco-crisis, help us solve it, apparently. And these poor people, and this is some of the remarkable findings of this study so far, these poor people can suffer environmental racism, whatever the hell that is. So gypsies are forging sustainable futures, you know, because you've seen them, haven't you? You know, driving around in their bloody great four-wheelers with smoke coming out. You've seen the mess they make most places they go. But apparently, according to this study, we can learn from the Romanis and help to solve environmental crisis. This is money well spent, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, where we're at right now is that Keir Starmer standing up lecturing us in his sanctimonious sort of politics of misery ideology, and he's saying that every penny counts and there's going to be a lot of pain for taxpayers. Well, actually, possibly what we need to do, because we pay them, is an audit on where our government money is being spent. This is a perfect example of wastage, of which there are many, many others of a higher scale in terms of finances. The British public, you know, we're a tolerant bunch. But we ultimately want value from what our investment is. And this particular scheme or research is one of a multitude. You know, I was reading the other day, for instance, KPMG are receiving north of 200 million as consultants to effectively check and audit whether our civil service is working. You know, and then there's all the net zero stuff, which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
You know, there is gargantuan sums of taxpayers' money that are wasted, not just in the last, 2 or 3 months with Labour, but going back into the Tories as well. And I think this is the heart of the matter. We need to have a scrutinisation about where government are spending our money, rather than governments lecturing us about our behaviour, whether it's smoking, as we've seen today, or whether it's pensioners getting punished, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And that ultimately is what the public are sick of. We now all think that we're spending our money and getting treated like suckers, but this example is one of a multitude of examples where taxpayers' money is fundamentally being wasted.
Yeah, no, so you, me and the audience, to make note of this, we're all paying for this to the tune of £810,000. This study at Glasgow University concludes that the sustainable Romani lifestyle can help combat the environmental crisis. And when I say, well, we've seen some of the messes that travelling folk tend to make wherever they lay their hat, as it were, wherever they park their caravans, you know, they say that what I just said is probably a typical example of, quotes, environmental racism, whatever the hell that is. But here's some more stuff that this fabulous study is going to do. They're going to create a Romani. This is what we're paying for. This is this government-funded, taxpayer-funded study. They're going to create a Romani metalwork sculpture and 2 dance events that represent the sustainability traditions and everyday practices of Roma and Romani gypsy communities. I barely know what to say. I mean, what?
Very often I'm speechless. But,
I am.
You know,
I mean,
it's just. But this is indicative of this clown world that we live in. I think the majority of people, in good faith, pay their taxes, but there's no good faith from our governments about how our taxes are being spent. And ultimately, going back to Starmer's politics of misery speech the other day, where there was no vision whatsoever, none.
Yeah.
It was basically
no
lecturing us
plan,
about...
no plan.
There's nothing. So ultimately, good governments, their plan is about how our tax money is spent and ultimately trying to raise more tax revenues by a growth strategy. Instead, we've got a government that's just thinking about telling us that we're going to be punished in the next budget, sometimes because of our behaviour, sometimes because they say there's a black hole. But if you want to have a discussion about the black hole, that's open for debate as well. Ultimately, we've got governments, not just this government, but the last one, pointing in the wrong direction in terms of how they're using our tax money, and absolutely no growth strategy whatsoever. And so I've been absolutely appalled by this government over the last few weeks, because they're doing nothing in terms of vision. They're doing nothing in terms of accountability and transparency about how our tax money is being spent. A lot of the money that they're spending, that we've given them, are spent in completely the wrong direction already. And yet we've got some serious problems that need to be fixed in this country, and Starmer has not addressed any of those. In fact, what he's doing is deflecting it. He's blaming communities or certain sections of societies rather than addressing the reasons why those societies and communities feel forgotten about and they're getting annoyed.
Anything that he finds awkward, he just doesn't address. That's his technique. And I'm glad that I'm able to pepper this conversation. We're talking about the money this government wastes on climate change claptrap. So going back to this important study on the Romani Gypsy communities, the money will also go towards visual and dance arts, which will highlight the contribution of Romani peoples to sustainability thinking and practice, e.g. Circular economy, whatever that is, recycling, reuse and repair, tiny home living, use of local materials, use of plants and herbs for health and hygiene, focus on community and sharing, and sustainable production techniques, including metalwork. The associated deliberative and artistic processes will be captured in a professional film. Tiny home living, that's important, isn't it? Again, I just want to stress that's what you, me, and all the audience are paying for. That is what this is the sort of nonsense that the government spaffs our money on, and then you can expand that into Miliband, Mad Ed Miliband's crazy expenditure on windmills, solar farms, cancelling North Sea oil and gas exploration and indeed production, putting at risk 100,000 jobs. But meanwhile, handing, and this is the real killer, handing £11 billion to foreign countries for their own alleged climate change projects. Now,
I've been talking about that.
Yeah, you got a bloody Chancellor, Rachel Thieves. Oh, we've got this huge hole, 22 billion. Well, you could plug it with this 11 billion, couldn't you? It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, you can plug in a number of things. You've got this particular thing, 11.6 billion, but also you've got in terms of the 8 million a day that's spaffed away on asylum seekers in hotels, and also the 5,000 rooms that are used as a buffer. They're not even used. And then you've got, there's a number, and then MP's expenses come into that as well, which is slightly ironic that we're still paying for the heating in MP second homes. Meanwhile, millions of pensioners face freezing this winter because they're losing the winter fuel allowance. But going back to Miliband, 11.6 billion spaffed away on what exactly? For something that's not going to make a blind bit of difference, something that actually is not environmentally friendly, because the actual aspects of certain things of net zero, whether it's to wind turbines or solar panels, are destructive in terms of their production of the environment. And it's not accountable. This is an enormous sum of money, 11.6 billion, which is more than half of the black hole. I would rather that sum of money is spent on what government should be doing, fixing our own roof in this country, of which there is many, many problems. And instead, what they're doing is punishing communities of people, almost blaming and lecturing communities of people, and meanwhile just still doing this drain of money on things that do not provide solutions. And actually, if you want to debate about net zero, as you know, I think there's something, I think environmentalism is massively important. Let's support our farmers, the custodians of our environment. But instead, we're plastering solar panels on prime agricultural land, which presents a huge issue with our food security. And also, we're providing net zero solutions, whether it's electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels, that actually are not going to make a blind bit of difference in terms of if you want to have the debate about climate. Instead, what we should be doing is spending money on the multitude of serious issues that are facing our country. And actually, people, I think, are willing to give Labour a chance. You know, they don't really have a mandate in terms of their percentage vote, but people are willing to give them a chance. But I think they've already blown it. On almost on a daily basis, they're coming out with announcements that are not in keeping with the mood of the British people, and it's reflected in their poll ratings already. And if they keep on going like this, I would predict that they are facing a period of unpopularity, possibly unprecedented in sort of the modern era, and deservedly so. The first couple of months have been dreadful.
They really have. I mean, it's just extraordinary how far they've fallen, how far their popularity levels have fallen. Keir Starmer's personal ratings are at an all-time record low. How he's managed to do this in 50 days flat, I really don't know. Well, I kind of do. I mean, what do you make of the general tone of this government moving away from environment now? I mean, they're big on things like, you know, green projects and Crazy Ed's various planet-saving techniques and all that is big expenditure. They're keen on virtue signalling. But apart from that, they seem to be very keen on locking up the white working class. They seem to be very enthusiastic exponents of two-tier policing. You know, if you get arrested at a riot, you're in jail within 3 days. You get arrested at the Notting Hill Carnival, probably for more serious offences. You know, you're all right, take your time, no big deal there. And also, you know, on the authoritarian front, what we've learned today, this bizarre ban on, or proposed ban on smoking in pub gardens. It all seems to me to be kind of directed towards a kind of authoritarianism, saying, now we're in charge, this is mother government, don't you defy us, or we'll put you in jail. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is strange, and it's happened so quickly. It's like they're sort of enjoying the trappings of power, but using it in the wrong way with a whiff of authoritarianism. And it's petty. And I think the style is pole-faced and sanctimonious, that they know best. They're ruling, they're not serving. For me, the number one rule of the government is that they should serve with the best interest of the people at heart, and also offer some hope.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, we were talking about that.
Going down the route of the Boris Johnson sort of other extreme of sunlit uplands. But I do not want grey skies either. There's got to be a balance. And so we've got also this government disingenuous about their promises, and they're now doing things that are diametric opposite of what they promised. You know, energy prices, they're going to be a freeze. That's not going to happen now. 10% rise according to Ofcom from October. There's also the winter fuel allowance. There's also that they wouldn't punish working people with tax rises. Well, it looks like they will be with the, you know, fuel duty rise that's likely in the budget. And so on every level,
what about
we've
that?
lost the faith of British people.
What about that? With Miliband, part of his election campaign was, I promise you, you know, with my new green dream land, energy prices will come down. His first public announcement is they're going up. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything. It's false advertising. This government is nothing. And I feel
that's
sorry
nice
for the
of you to
British
say. I'll tell you what I think it is. It's lying. They just lied.
Yeah, I'm politer than you, Kevin. I'm trying to use more truth. But effectively, it's pretty much the same thing. You know, the British public were hoodwinked in a manifesto that meant nothing. And still we've got the complete opposite. But there's also, going back to your point about tone, Starmer, he's pitching this in a way that's turning people off. He's losing friends and alienating people here. The tone is lecturing, it's pole-faced, it's sanctimonious, and it's also hypocritical. You know, the cronyism aspect's another thing that can add in there as well. So we've got a Prime Minister and many others who are coming up with crass logic initiatives, petty stuff like a potential smoking ban in outside of hospitality venues, which will decimate the hospitality industry even more on the back of COVID and high energy prices as well. What this government should be doing is protecting the major aspects in this country that bind people together, of which our hospitality industry is one of those, instead of punishing them again. And that is why their poll ratings are already tanking. People see right through them. People are not sure what's coming next. It's already affecting business. They're punishing certain sections of society like pensioners already. I think we're in for a long 4.5 years.
Yeah, we certainly are. And Starmer's contention that he deserves 10 years, as I keep saying, you give us 5 years of misery, you want 10 years. In the middle of that 10 years, there's a thing called a general election. You give us 5 years of misery, you lose. It's as simple as that. So, you know, as you quite rightly said earlier, James, I agree with you. I think he's already blown it, which is extraordinary in such a short space of time. Got to go now, James, though. Really good to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. James Melville, political and social commentator, is an expert on environmental affairs as well. So what do you think about what he was talking about? And the real question that I'd like you to call in about is, given that this government's so poverty-stricken, we haven't got any money, why are they giving £11 billion to foreign countries for climate change claptrap? Why? Why? If you're hard up, why would you spaff money like that? Try and answer it for me, because I'm damned if I can work it out.